Hi there, I'm Li Lei. Today, let's talk about a fascinating book called Imperial Incense. When we think of Empress Dowager Cixi, she's incredibly famous, but how well do we really know her? She was born in 1835 and passed away in 1908, almost 2 centuries ago, during China's imperial era. So nowadays, when people bring up Cixi, they'd probably pause and say, "I've watched a few TV shows about her." They often portray her rivalry with Empress Dowager Cixi, accusations of poisoning her own children, manipulating Emperor Guangxu, consolidating power, living a lavish lifestyle, and resisting reforms, painting her as a villain in Chinese history. But if you really think about it, these are mostly symbolic concepts. Behind them was a real person. What was Empress Dowager Cixi like during the late Qing Dynasty? Let's delve into the real history. Back in July 1928, a significant event occurred. Warlord Sun Dianying and his soldiers blew up Cixi's tomb to loot its treasures. How was Cixi laid to rest? She was placed in a golden coffin lined with a 7-kun thick mattress woven from golden threads, adorned with over 10,000 pearls, 85 rubies, and more than 200 pieces of jade. Her body was covered with a quilt interwoven with over 25,000 characters of Buddhist Dharani scriptures and adorned with over 800 pearls. It is said that her face looked lifelike, and her phoenix crown was studded with gemstones, with each pearl as big as an egg weighing 200 grams. Most astonishingly, there was a night pearl held in her mouth. When separated, it appeared as 2 dull and transparent pearls, but when put together, they emitted a cold green light that could illuminate 100 steps around. This news made headlines and refocused our attention on Cixi, who stood at the pinnacle of power, the last uncrowned empress in Chinese history. Cixi lived through the reigns of Daoguang, Xianfeng, Tongji, and Guangxu, ruling for 48 years. Her reign occupied 1/5 of the entire Qing Dynasty. She experienced many pivotal moments, from 1840 to 1900, witnessing 5 major Sino-Foreign wars: the First Opium War, the Second Opium War, the Sino-French War, the Sino-Japanese War of 1894-1895, and the invasion of the Eight-Nation Alliance. It can be said that many significant events in modern Chinese history are closely related to Cixi. Our history textbooks cannot bypass her. She twice determined the selection of Qing Dynasty emperors, staged 2 coups, and served as regent 3 times. She was the most powerful and politically savvy figure in late Qing China. At the time, those around her called her West Empress Dowager, or Old Buddha, and no one dared to address her casually as Cixi. Cixi bears undeniable responsibility for the decline of the Qing Empire and the signing of unequal treaties in modern Chinese history, such as the Treaty of Maguan and the Treaty of Xinqiu. But from certain perspectives, Empress Dowager Cixi was also a powerful queen. For instance, she dared to break the Qing tradition of exclusively using Manchu 8 Banners descendants, boldly appointing Han Chinese figures like Zheng Guofan, Zhuo Zongtang, Li Hongzhang, and Zhang Zhidong. These names sparkle brightly. Did these individuals lack intelligence? Did they lack judgment? Why were they willing to assist Cixi? During her reign, Cixi allowed Zheng Guofan to develop the Xiang army and Li Hongzhang to develop the Huai army. She also adopted some of Zhuo Zongtang's correct proposals regarding the border, leading to the recovery of Yili, which had been occupied by Russia for a decade. In launching the self-strengthening movement, Cixi valued Li Hongzhang, Zhang Zhidong, and other capable ministers, paving the way for China's modern industrial development. Based on this foundation, we can see the Qing Dynasty managed to quell some rebellious forces, construct a modernized army, and create a situation of rejuvenation in Tongji. But speaking of Empress Dowager Cixi, she snuffed out the fledgling 100 Days Reform, executed the 6 gentlemen of the 100 Days Reform like Tan Xitong, imprisoned Emperor Guangxu, and plunged the Qing Dynasty, which had just glimpsed a bit of dawn, back into extreme backwardness and despotism. From then on, the Qing Dynasty lost its final chance for self-strengthening and headed towards complete collapse. So, the history is extremely complex, and of course, It's closely related to Cixi's complex personality. In 1908, Emperor Guangxu passed away at Yingtai. The next day, 74-year-old Empress Dowager Cixi also passed away at the Hall of Graceful Bird at the Middle Sea. After her death, Cixi was buried at Eastern Qing tombs in Zunhua, Hebei. Just 3 years after her passing, the Qing Dynasty came to an end, and ultimately she couldn't even secure her own tomb. After hearing this dramatic history, we might find it difficult to judge this person because of her complexity. In the eyes of foreigners, Empress Dowager Cixi was a tall and dignified woman with piercing eyes and an aura of nobility and arrogance in her voice, carrying an unshakable authority and absolute dignity. American missionary Headland, who experienced late Qing court life, once wrote in his book, "There was no one in Chinese history like Empress Dowager Cixi, and she is unparalleled in world history." Why is that? Well, in terms of her strong personality and abilities, Cixi was unmatched by anyone. She ruled China for nearly half a century, all within a country where women had no rights at all. Saying she was one of the most remarkable women of the late 19th century wouldn't be an exaggeration, right? Actually, many Western evaluations are quite exaggerated and often too detached, because they haven't personally experienced the miserable life of the Chinese people under Cixi's reign. Comparatively, Puyi's English teacher Johnston's evaluation seems more objective. He said, "From a clear-eyed Chinese perspective, Cixi bears the primary responsibility for the Qing dynasty's demise, the main culprit in Qing dynasty's increasing decay." I broadly agree with this view, but I'd like to add that we shouldn't attribute all blame to her name.